Welcome to the Benji channel. My name is Benji, and today we have a very good chapter to discuss. Now, I will admit that this chapter isn't necessarily as spicy as the other chapters that we gotten, but nonetheless, we still have a lot to discuss. But before I do begin, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the Benji channel. I make weekly One Piece chapter reviews as well as One Piece discussion videos. And I want to go ahead and say this, thank you for all of the love and support that I was given on the Mihawk versus Shanks video. That video did a lot better than I thought it was. So anybody who retweeted or left a comment or a like, I very much appreciate it. There'll be more videos like that in the future, as well as other anime and manga discussion videos as well. Just give me a little bit more time. Now, this is very much of a milestone. I know 100 doesn't seem like a lot, but to me, especially for the work that I put into a lot of these videos, it means an incredible amount. I think at the time of this filming, it's 103 subscribers, but that just means 103 people kind of see the vision and they want to be with me on this journey to hopefully, you know, maybe 1 million subscribers, who knows, maybe 100,000 subscribers, who knows, but like they want to kind of see the progression. So I really do appreciate everyone who subscribed, everyone who liked, everyone who watches the videos. I really do appreciate it. You guys mean a lot to me. But also, moving on, if you haven't already, go ahead and join the Geek Giant family and subscribe to the Geek Giant podcast channel, as well as the Geek Giant Discord. But no more rambling on. Let's go ahead and begin with this chapter review of chapter 1074 of One Piece Mark 3. And we begin with yet another cover page detailing the events that once happened in the Mad's program. And we see Judge, Queen, and Caesar. And they all look similar to how they currently look within the story of One Piece right now. And like I've said before in previous chapter reviews, the reunion is going to be something that a lot of people, I think, will want to see. But let's move on to the actual chapter. Now, we don't get any more information on the Gorosei member that's headed to Egghead currently, Mr. J. Garcia Saturn. But instead, we actually get a little bit more of details or the capabilities of this new grade of pacifistas. Which is super dope because it seems from this chapter that they're going to have a new relevance in the story. And I feel like, this is just me personally, pacifistas haven't necessarily been talked about as much as they were in the pre-time skip. And we see that one of the CP members is trying to shoot a bazooka at one of the new pacifista models. And soon learns that this is going to be super ineffective against them, because this new special grade pacifistas actually have a new technological shield that is known as bubble shields, which is said to be the strongest shield ever created by the famous Vegapunk. And it's also recognized that these pacifistas have far surpassed the prototypes of the Summit War or Marineford. And they are known none other than Mark III. And it is found out that none other than Sentomaru is actually the one who deployed these new models in order to help the Straw Hats and Old Man Vegapunk escape. And he didn't just deploy one or two of these pacifistas. And mind you, these pacifistas are humongous. He deployed 50 of these things. Now, I do have a question. I do want to know what the power differential between the newest models of Seraphims and the pacifistas are. I'm more than confident that the Seraphims are much more stronger than the pacifistas, but I wonder what the gap is between them. We know that the pacifistas was a major playing component within the pre-time skip. So kind of seeing that kind of change, or like the scale kind of change on that, I do kind of want to see what's the power differential. But what do you guys think? Anyways, we catch back up with our favorite MC, Luffy, and he's completely exhausted for the fact that he's went all over the lab looking for Bonnie and Old Man Vegapunk. And it's funny because Luffy didn't have to do any of that. According to Vegapunk Shaka, they have a monitor on Bonnie's whereabouts. And we see Luffy make the typical funny face, basically being like, you should have told me that before. But we then see some of the best fits that we've seen in Egghead, and I'm talking about one person in particular. Coming from that guy, ZORO. And I can't even lie, this might be one of ZORO's coldest fits to this day in One Piece. And I do find it quite a shame that Oda gave ZORO this swaggy ass fit and gave Sanji this mid-ass squirrel boy fit. Like, come on, son. Like, what is this? What is this? But I digress. But I will say this, the more that we see Stussy in these recent chapters, the more she ranks higher in our One Piece waifu tier list. Because Stussy a baddie, you know, I'm gonna just say that right now. Also, we get to see a look at Brook's fit within Egghead, and it looks pretty dope. And I don't know why I never really thought about this. I never really realized how tall Brook is. Brook is really a giant. He really should be getting my rebounds, you feel me? But anyways, moving on, we actually get more details from Shaka, and things aren't necessarily as copacetic as they seem to be. So for one, we have absolutely no idea who shut down the barrier, and also it seems like from this fact alone that they are trapped within Egghead. And the biggest issue seems to be that they can't necessarily pinpoint the exact location where Old Man Vegapunk is. But as a solution, Vegapunk Shaka, or Vegapunk number 1, is going to figure out the barrier situation. But the main goal is to find where Old Man Vegapunk is. Or Infant Vegapunk, as of right now. So the Straw Hats, including the other satellites of Vegapunk, as well as Stussy, are on a search for Old Man Vegapunk. And Sanji seems very excited for Stussy joining the search party. But Zoro, who is also here, also wants to help. But we get this very funny reaction to the crew recommending that Zoro stays with Luffy because we all know that Zoro is going to get lost. And they don't want to waste any more time looking for Zoro if he were to get lost, which he probably would. I always find it very funny how Oda is able to kind of have some of these gags that are reoccurring in the story kind of reemerge at opportune moments. So I do feel like this is very funny, especially the reaction of the crew basically like, hey Zoro, I think you should probably sit tight, my boy. You know, I don't want you to get lost, you feel me? But moving on, this is where things start to get very interesting. Take a look. We move on to Bonnie, who seems to have connected with what seemed to have been Kuma's memories. And she's able to kind of be immersed into Kuma's memories, and she sees none other than a young Kuma crying. Unable to interact with her father, she actually sees several silhouettes approaching young Kuma, saying this: "We've got you now. Bastard, get your ass back here now. If you escape, they'll kill the rest of us." Kuma seemingly pleading not to go back to this previous place that these silhouettes had mentioned. And from the looks of it, it looks like Kuma is being used for some kind of proposition in a way, in order for like the rest of the villagers not to get injured or killed, simply for, you know, being able to kind of exploit Kuma in a way. And unfortunately, in order to get Kuma to come back and basically like bend to the will of these individuals, they start to beat Kuma as a young child. One thing leads to another, and we see yet another group of silhouettes, and they look very similar to the celestial dragons. All of this while a young Kuma cries, begging for help, begging for someone to save him. Bonnie can't take too much of this and is forced out of Kuma's memories because it's too much for her. We briefly see the actual Kuma in present time actually still climbing the red port, and he's being shot at. And I really hope that we do not lose Kuma, because especially with this backstory, it's kind of hinting that Kuma is probably going to be either destroyed or killed or captured again. But Bonnie regathers herself and actually forces her hands back to Kuma's memory in order to uncover the truth. And I'm gonna be honest, I have one of the strongest feelings that Kuma's backstory is going to be one of the most saddest, tragic backstories of all time. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be more sad than Kaido's backstory, or at least more in-depth, unfortunately. But, you know, that's a whole nother story. We then move on to Vegapunk Pythagoras, and he's in search of Old Man Vegapunk. And something seems to sneak behind him as he searches. And then out of nowhere, a huge explosion seems to happen in the area in which he was searching. And from the looks of it, it looks very possible that one of the satellites, or at least one of the robots within Vegapunk's lab, is actually a traitor, and possibly could be the very person who actually shut down the barrier originally in order to try to help CP0. But who knows, maybe there's another faction within all of this. It could also be Caribou as well. We haven't seen Caribou since his little interaction between Brook and Zoro, but I want to see what happens. But whoever it is, they are trying to sabotage this escape plan. But nevertheless, this is going to be pretty exciting to see how this unfolds. But we end the chapter with some pretty good news. Check this out. We see Morgans, known as Big News Morgans, and he seems to be getting an update from the situation in Egghead. And this also gives a possibility that the person contacting Big Morgans could also be the traitor in disguise. The news that Vegapunk possibly being assassinated by none other than the world government wouldn't necessarily sit right with the general public, especially since Vegapunk seems to be responsible for providing energy to small villages and communities, but he did say that he did want to give energy to the entirety of the One Piece world. So in order to spin it, Morgans knows that Luffy is also an egghead as well. So Morgans makes the proposition for his news crew to possibly make Luffy seem like the kidnapper of Vegapunk. Now this by far is going to make Luffy one of the most infamous people within the One Piece world and could possibly increase his bounty even more. And I wonder if the world government will actually use this information or this news article in particular to kind of gain favor from the general public as a whole. But we end the chapter with none other than Vivi and Wapol. Wapol looking very anxious that this conversation could be wiretapped. And Vivi, who is looking very good, is actually against the fact that they are trying to slander her guy Luffy. And we end the chapter there, and there's no breaks next week. Now this chapter, like I said before, wasn't particularly crazy with some of the information that we got, but I will say we have a lot of interesting things to look forward to in the next week's chapter. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to see your opinions on what could possibly be happening, especially towards the end of Egghead arc. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I'm truly appreciative, and also 100 subscribers is crazy. I can't wait to continue this YouTube journey with none other than you guys. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.